What's up guys, welcome back to another video. If you watched the last video, this is the live stream that Alvin and myself both played on. So since he's here with me in Dallas, I figured let's run this back. Let's get his critiques of my play. I'll critique his play, he can learn from me, I can learn from him. And yeah, a lot of good learning points here. Of course, if you don't know who Alvin is, he's my poker coach. There are links down below to all of his amazing stuff, including something that we did together. But now let's get into some of the hands here.
I will say, going into this, we have a bet that if either one of us misses a value bet, they have to buy the other person Velvet Taco. So,
okay, yeah, I think I remember that from last
one taco per bet. So
that did happen.
I don't miss value bets, so only Wolfgang owes me tacos. This is a one-way taco excursion. Brass Monkey's got kings. Wolfgang 3-bets with King Jack suited, which is a super standard 3-bet. Always want to be 3-betting our suited jacks plus in position. And I wake up with aces, so really my only question is what is the sizing that I want to extract from Wolfgang. We're 200 big blinds deep, so the standard here is going to be a little bit more than, the minimum, so 675 in position. But when we're a little bit deep, I want to go a little bit closer to, 3x, so I make it 800, going up to even 900 is probably realistic here. Trying to attempt to put 20% of Wolfgang's stack in, but kings goes in, two guys make horrible faces and toss their cards in.
Luckily here for me, Brass Monkey wakes up with a great hand because I don't know, I might have called you there and tried to battle a little bit, so I saved some money. But it looks like you're gonna.
I think if you want to battle me here, you probably want again your strongest suited hands here, and so I think you'd rather have ace, queen, king, queen, ace, jack suited than just having the suited jack here. So basically, after you 3-bet, you're probably near the bottom of your suited hand range here, because you might hit flat sometimes with jack 10, right? You might fold some jack 9 suited and stuff like that. So yeah, it gets a little bit close here.
Well, congrats, you are $5,000 richer.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a hand that we battle with here. Seinfeld opens it up to 150, and I find myself with pocket 9s. And I decide to come in for the 3-bet out of position here. I'm in the big blind, so...
Yeah, I think flatting is fine when you're playing this particular 3-blind format. You're allowed to have a flatting range here. I think 3-betting here occasionally is going to be fine. Seinfeld's in the cutoff. Yeah, so this is pretty reasonable here. And I imagine BDD's gonna call with 10s? Yeah, I think 4-betting is gonna be overplaying here. Wow, does he just release? Wow, you get the best hand to fold there. That's pretty wild. I think about cold 4-betting here. I think if my hand was king queen suited, ace jack suited, ace queen suited, I would always 4-bet here. So I was just thinking how loosey you might be in this spot, and I decided to give it up.
Action's back to Seinfeld, and he puts in the call. Cool, so now we are going in position to a flop. Queen 8-7, I'm out of position, so acting first. Do you like a bet or a check here?
At this depth, you're always probably allowed to play kind of a mixed strategy here. Particularly having a 9 is bad because that blocks a lot of your opponent's floats, 9, jack, etc. Right? So, you're blocking one of the hands most likely that will call and then bluff you on future streets. So yeah, checking is totally reasonable. Now that he's checked back, I'm probably expecting to get 2 streets of value from this guy, because he should not be checking too many queen X after you check to him here. I mean, maybe he's playing pretty trappy. Maybe he sometimes has 10s and jacks as well, but I think we can probably go for a third here, a third on the river, or something like that, third half pot. I do like that you start with a bet here. You go close to half pot? Is that what it looks like?
425.
Okay, yeah, this is somewhat reasonable. It depends on how confident you are villain does not have top pair, right?
Cool.
I think as a general rule, I like to bet a little bit on the lower side just to make sure that I can always get him to peel with a 4 and a 7 as well.
Makes sense. Okay, we find ourselves on the button here with Queen 9 of clubs. I'm gonna come in for a raise and make it 150, pretty standard. And action's on sturdy.
Yeah, sturdy calls 8s, pretty standard. Probably not a hand that you want to be 3-betting that often. Just want to get to a lot of flops, especially if you're playing against an opponent who can possibly pile on you. Plus check on the flop. I mean, checking this hand is reasonable. Betting a third is reasonable on the flop as well. You do induce a bet from Sturdy. Sturdy actually should almost always just check call the turn. I don't think he really gets too much value. I mean, he's kind of calling you out for, like, his bet is good if he thinks that you can never check back a pair on the flop.
Yeah, he's probably just saying, like, I think you have a lot of ace, king, king, queen type stuff, ace, jack.
Yeah, I mean, you probably don't have too much king, queen, because that probably just bets the flop. Yeah, but he's just basically saying, calling you out for like ace high and trying to get some value from it, so.
Obviously, I'm calling with my 9.
Yeah, and so you're also going to always basically call any river and then, in my opinion, value bet with check too, so. You know, this is very close. I think that this is generally going to be a bet. Because there's like a couple gut shots that whiffed, and then
you can see I'm upset because I missed a value bet. I owe you a taco, and I probably lost on like another $200.
Yeah,
but
I think maybe 150 and 200 there, right? I think in general you have to give your opponents a little bit more credit for playing face up. I think there's going to be some spots where like villains like check raise you and then give up on the turn, and then you check back and then give them room to bluff you on the river.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of the times when people check raise you and they give up on the turn, just put in some money and see what happens. It's really hard for people to have very developed check raise the flop and then be balanced on the turn after they check strategies.
Okay, this next hand goes extremely multi-way over to me. We got Paulo that opens it up to 150. You got a few calls, and I actually don't have Jack 10 here. I have pocket 10s. So yeah, the graphics are wrong on this one, but I decided to obviously bump it up here. Pocket 10 is good enough to squeeze.
Yeah, so I think for you as a general rule of thumb, you're not squeezing large enough, right? So we want to start with at least 4x, and then we want to generally add as much as the in-between players have put in. So I want to start at like 600 and then add 300, so I would make this to like 900-ish.
Yeah, I made it 650.
Yeah. So yeah, you're missing the ability to essentially punish your opponents from like trying to set mine against you, right? So
yeah, so graphics are going a little funky here, but Carlos actually does make the call with pocket 5s, and we are off to a flop.
So 5s versus 10s here. Starts ace king 9. He checks
to me.
So I mean, obviously we have the huge advantage here, so we should always just begin putting in a bet.
Carl's still with the best hand.
That's what I decided to do. I think I make it $400 here.
Oh, I guess we can't see the pot size here. Yeah, the pot size was like 1,200. Or actually, no, it's like 1,500. So I think you bet like a quarter of the pot here. So again, would have probably wanted to size it up a little bit more.
And he does min click it back to me though.
He makes it 800?
Yeah, I make it 4, he makes it 8, which is weird on this ace king 9 board. Like, what is he?
Okay, so this is kind of important. When your opponent min clicks it on boards where they cannot rep anything, you have basically two plays. One is if you have air here, I would click back, right? And the reason is very often when they're min clicking, they either have the ultra nuts, in which case you don't want to put in any more money than a min click back, or they have an extremely polar range of a lot of just random stuff that again just folds to a very small bet, right? A similar situation, situation like theoretically is I continuation bet small blind into the big blind, he raises me, right? The small blind is allowed to have a click sizing there because the big blind is so wide, a lot of his flop ranges are going to be, again, polarized to really strong hands and just like total bullshit. And when they have just potentially total BS, just a tiny little bet is going to punish them. So very often, I think spidey senses should go off when your villain check raises you on a board where it's really difficult for him to have any part of it. Right? Hard for him to have an ace, ace king, hard for him to have like pocket 9s in the spot. Carlos might have squeezed those pre. He should just be really naked here. So, if you had Jack 10, I would always at least float and 3-bet when you have 10s here. I mean, 10s is pretty close because, like, if you really have a read on Carlos, and unfortunately we don't, right? Because we've seen, he mixes it up. Then we could just go call, right? And then you would look like a superhero here. And honestly, I don't think that this is a horrible spot to do that, mostly because, like, in the moment when I was watching this hand, I was like, this guy's bluffing. Like 100%, right? Because he just can't rep anything. And so basically a lot of this is recognizing when your opponents can't have anything and then being willing to pressure them back. What's also important here is when you have pocket 10s facing this, you miss this raise, you don't have any showdown value anymore, right? So you kind of have to think of your hand as like some kind of blocker-ish type hand that, right, like has some kind of showdown value if you like can just check it down from here. Maybe, right? But like, I would often look for opportunities to turn it into a bluff when check two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I do decide just to call here. $400 more. I wanted to see what he'd do on the turn.
Sure. And so here's kind of the thing. You say I'm gonna float here to see what he does on the turn, and then what does he do on the turn?
He checks.
Yeah. And so then do we try to take the pot from him?
Well, we're gonna find out. Turn comes the queen. I think it's queen of hearts. So it's ace,
Okay.
king, queen, 9, and I have the 10. So I block jack 10 twice. And he decides to slow down and check here. And this was an interesting inflection point for me because I was like, do I bet here and then he does the double check raise that you see on YouTube so often, or do I check behind here and either pick off bluffs on the river or value, I don't know, try to bluff him off of like a king?
Let me ask you this. How many times have you been double check raised in your life?
Maybe once.
In your life?
Yeah.
So why do you think he's gonna do that?
Because he's Carlos, man.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Because he's Carlos.
I don't know, because he min check raised me on the flop. It's just weird. I know it's not going to happen very often, so I can't be scared of that.
Yeah. So I think there's been a couple of times where I've seen you got check raised on the flop, and then when check two on the turn, you just turn into stone, right? And so that's really dangerous because very often that means if villains check raise you on the flop with a draw, then it goes check, check on the turn. You're letting them, while you're in position, draw for free when you should be gatekeeping them, right? So as a default, when people check raise and I have some kind of value or want to turn into a bluff, I really like going 1/3. Because again, that really puts him into a weird spot. For example, let's say he just had a naked gut shot on the turn, or he has like a naked like 7-8 of hearts and he has like a flush draw. He checks the turn, you bet 1/3. Right, like he is in a horrible position because should he hit his draw on the river, you're never paying him off, right? But when he calls the turn, you're somehow getting value with like pocket tens, right? So,
Right.
Yeah.
Bad check back here. I just got confused on the flop. I didn't know what to do.
It's a good check back if you're intending to raise the river.
What is that, a 4?
River comes the 4 of diamonds, and
King with the nuts right
Carlos decides to bet out into me here.
Close. Betting into you.
1,500.
1,500 to go.
I would rip on him. Yeah. So let's think about what hand is Carlos trying to represent here, right? He can't have Jack 10, right? I don't think Jack 10 ever plays this way. Right? There's just, it makes absolutely no sense. You have 2 10s, right? He can be trying to rep really awkward ace jack, which I don't think, again, min raises the flop. Like, no hand min raises the flop that makes sense here.
It didn't make any sense.
So I just don't think anything makes sense. I just rip. Or you can hero. But generally, I don't like heroing with 4th pair.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Like,
Just in case he has turned into like something into a bluff.
Yeah.
Like you never want to call here with like 9-8, just in case he just has like Jack 9. Do you know what I mean?
or like 9, 10 of diamonds,
yeah.
or
So-
that would be a flush.
Yeah, and so like, I don't think live players bet check raise enough as bluff. Right. This is no, without giving it too much sauce. This is definitely a line I use when I play live. Right. Like I bet small on the flop, turn goes check check, and when they bet small, I just kind of pile on them because you know what can they do? And so I think this is going to be a really really good example. You really want to go for it when you have good blockers in your hand and when villain is in late position. All of these things have come together for this to be a jam.
The
But
thought did go through my head. I'm obviously not tanking here to call. It's either gonna raise or fold, and eventually I put the card protector back on. I really want to do something here, but
There's a big bet here.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I folded, Alvin.
I mean, also
It just was weird.
I mean, looking at Carlos's body language here, when you have the hand over the I mean, like who knows? But like to me, he looks like he does not want to get called. So.
Yeah, I gave it up, which is unfortunate seeing the hand now, and he shows it. Because he has a nip button, he has to show it. I'm like,
And he
oh,
shows
God.
the 5s and wrecks you. It's
Yeah,
fine.
you wrecked me. Nice hand.
Well played, Carlos. Okay, so I raise jacks.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yep.
I get called by 9-4, all the respect. 9-8, all the respect. 4s make sense. Wolfgang calls with 7s, so
It's on the hat.
it's a party. Hopefully you can hit a jack and just stomp through these guys.
Or hit a 7 and
I just
stomp through
need
these guys.
the flop to hit, Jack 7-4. I have so many opportunities to cooler people here.
Yeah, just Jack 7-4.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't flop a boat. This is
Yeah, graphics
fantasy.
are wrong. They updated. It's actually King 3-3.
Yeah, so significantly worse. Multi-way. Don't really want to put in any money, so I'm gonna start with a check to the field.
You can see BDD actually flops 3 of a kind, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
with 6-3 offsuit here, he sets the trap twice, and I definitely talk about having a river, a protected multiple street checking range, and so this is actually funny because we actually just had this theoretical lesson right before this stream where I was like, you don't defend your double or triple check multi-way enough. And so I'm really happy to see that you do check a trap here. I will say, however, in the presence of all of these other players, I think the best way to get paid is just to bet and hope someone else raises you.
You mean lead out here on the river when I fill up?
Yeah, so I think it's very unlikely anyone has like hearts because they probably would have bet. You know what I mean? I don't think, I mean, obviously this guy has a 3, but I think having a 3 should be relatively unlikely. So I would just bet like 600 here and hope someone has somehow slow played and then
and let something else happen. I decided to get tricky here and check it one more time. I think it works in this moment when he bets out for $100, and Alvin's gonna get spicy here and do something as well, which is music to my ears. I'm like, holy crap, a bet and a raise, and I pretty much have the nuts.
Yeah, so this raise is obviously theoretically horrible, exploitatively, probably pretty good here. I just think that I'm like so able to hand read my opponent here that I'm putting him on a hand like a 7x or pocket 8s. I just think it's hard for him to have a 3, hard for him to have a king, hard for him to have just like, a lot of slow plays because, BDD's been pretty aggressive and pretty wild, so I just don't expect him to have as many traps as he does. And so when he makes it 100, I just think he's turning his hand face up. I think everyone's hand is face up, so I go for the absolutely tiny raise. But this is not going to work out running into a boat.
Nope. But I decided to raise it large here. I was trying to get value from any flush draw that just didn't think that they... I was trying to get value from any flush that just can't fold. A lot of times in these games, people make a really good hand and they just don't want to fold.
So to be fair, right?
I make it 1500, which might have been too large in the moment, but I was targeting a flush.
So okay, let's actually talk about how you're trying to target a flush, right? So one, let's kind of read the situation here. If anyone had a flush draw, again, may have bet the turn, I think that we will agree that I'm the person who's most likely to show up with like ace queen of hearts here, or ace jack of hearts, right? Like that's something I can definitely show up with here. But after he bets 1 and I raise to 3, we probably understand the dynamic that if I had a really strong hand here, I would be piling harder on this guy, right? Because he's capable of making big calls. And so if that is the case, trying to hand read specifically into me having a flush here is probably going to be a little bit ambitious, right? I think it's most likely I have some kind of king or 3x. I mean, I really don't have any 3x here, right? Especially from my raising range. I don't know, but I just don't think a flush is that likely. But I again am the player most likely to have a flush here.
That being said, like if I was to raise it smaller, like to 750 or 800, if you had a king, you're just gonna fold against that.
Yeah, I mean,
because that's such a strong line for me to check raise, and he has action behind and stuff.
I guess no real sizing here is going to be amazing, mostly because I don't think that you have any bluffs in this spot.
Yeah.
Right, so like if you are capable of having like 7-6 here and check raising the field, then this sizing is really good. So if you can show me that bluff, then I like the sizing, because then it's
note to self, show up with 7-6.
Because like it would have worked. You would have cleaned out, right? So that's like something I don't think that people are doing enough.
The raise was a little too big. Everyone fold, but we win $1,000. So
yeah. Also,
but lead out on the river is definitely the learning point here, and maybe get DBB to like raise me. If I make it like 500 and he makes it like 1,000 or 15.
I mean, but if you just like naked bet 500 and he just called, you would have just made more money.
Made more money too, and you fold.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have you lose in the hand.
Yeah. But it's gonna be pretty hard for me to fall for this trap.
Yeah.
Especially because immediately it went in my mind, I'm just like, wait, we just had this talk.
Yeah. So this is a hand that Alvin plays that was really interesting. Have to throw it in there. My pocket threes are irrelevant. I don't make it far in this hand at all. Alvin has king, queen of hearts, and he's going to raise it up to 250 over a few limpers.
Right. Randy's never going to give me any respect, but fortunately Paolo wakes up with queens, which is extra bad for my exact hand. Unfortunately, I have too strong a hand for me to fold. From this position, it's actually a little bit close on whether I should be calling or 4-betting here, especially because I have pretty good blockers to a lot of his continuing range. And so I'm just like kind of sitting here thinking about like, what do I want to do? Do I want to take the more passive or the more aggressive option here? I will say, as a general dynamic, I do think Paolo is much more likely to be value heavy when one of the players is a known pro, me, and then one of the players is like very, very loose and splashy. I just think the likelihood that Paolo is showing up with like a really airball type hand is going to be a little bit less. So
What do you think of his 6x sizing?
Very standard, considering he's squeezing, right? So yeah, and also we're like a little bit deep. So yeah, I do. He wants to always just make it a sizing that hurts, essentially, right? So
you put in the call, having blockers to kings and queens, but doesn't seem to be working in this hand either.
Yeah, not yet. So fortunately, flop comes amazing for me, mostly because in Paolo's squeezing range, he's not going to have as many suited connectors as I'm going to be defending. So I can have 5-4, 4-5, 7-8. Right, and I can have all of like the super nutted hands. He should be checking the majority of hands here, and so I think the correct sizing here is to bet like 20 to 25% of the pot. So I'm just like I'm looking into the sky to.
This is what an online professional looks like.
Yeah.
Put at in real life.
I know. I'm trying to look at the.
How much
I'm looking at how many big blinds are in the pot in the sky. So
2 plus 2 is 4.
Yeah, exactly. So I bet
a few greens. Let me drop the greens.
Do I bet a fifth of the pot? A fifth of the pot?
Let's see.
What do I bet here?
3,100. So fifth would be
What do I bet? 575?
675.
Okay, yeah, so a little bit on the big side. I'd rather bet like 625, but not gonna lose too much sleep over it. And then Paolo obviously has a call. He can raise like a tiny percentage of the time, but like why?
Yeah, he does call.
Yeah. So turns to 2, and the 2 is kind of interesting because like neither of us should really have 3s. So this is okay. So this is gonna be the spot where.
Well, you know who did have 3s? I had pocket 3s.
No, that's funny.
Oh gosh, I just realized that.
So this is going to be a spot where, in a heads up pot, a non-squeeze spot, I normally start to pile here, mostly because I think that I still maintain a lot of the advantages and I block kings and queens. So like 100 big blinds deep, heads up, I'm probably going broke here, turning my hand into a bluff. But again, I actually froze up a little bit because again, when you squeeze with the loosest player in the game at the table, it's just much more likely that you are going to be like very value heavy. So I don't know exactly how aggressive Paolo is going to be on the flop. Like, is he going to bet a hand like queens and stuff like that? I think in general people err on being a little bit too passive on these boards.
So in this moment you're thinking about obviously betting or checking. So what are your bet sizings if you are going to bet here? Is it pot?
So we have a lot of money behind. Actually, no, I'm sorry. We don't have too much money behind. I would actually be betting to like set up stacks. So theoretically we can go like 5,000 here, but like with our stack sizes, it's probably actually not that necessary.
If you want like 3, you could set up stacks.
Yeah, I mean 3 actually might be a little bit large given how much money we have behind, right? So if I make it,
you're playing like
3 here, effective. Yeah. So yeah, I just think it's like the stack sizes are a little bit awkward. I end up checking here. River is the ace. So now this is another weird conundrum for me because if I show up to this river with any hand that is not king queen here, so because like king queen is the nut nothing. So if Paolo floated me with like any kind of like overcard with diamonds, hearts, or clubs, which he has to do with some a degree, right? Like I beat all of those, so there's no actual reason to bet. If he floats me with an ace, I'm never getting him to fold an ace with our stack sizes, and also the most likely like hands like I don't know if he has 10s here. 10s might flat some percentage of the time, right? I don't know if Paolo like pure 3 bets those. So like the hands I'm trying to get off here exactly are 10s and jacks, which I might be able to do. And then kings and queens, and then ace king and ace queen, and I have blockers to all of those hands. Right. So I was kind of put in a spot because like, going 3,000 here to try to push him off like jacks and 10s is pretty reasonable, again, because I have those blockers. But if my read is that he's very value heavy here. The problem is the hands that I'm most likely representing are probably going to be hands like ace, jack, and ace, queen. And so if he's got jacks and queens, I find it actually relatively unlikely that he's going to be giving it up. Right, so if he has pocket queens, he can be like, well, I have 2 blockers to ace queen, so I'm gonna stop Alvin from calling here.
I think if you would have bet turn, then this river would be, you'd be more likely to continue on the turn.
I definitely follow through, because on the turn
checking turn, checking back here makes sense.
Yeah, and also, so Paolo actually should be value betting here quite thinly. So if he should be betting the majority of his range here, mostly because when he check calls the flop, he's got the ace king advantage. Right, so when he has ace king advantage, he can block here, right? So if he's got queens, jacks, kings, a bunch of his like overs that kind of whiffed, all of those should bluff, right? And I don't think that Paolo's gonna just be checking like king 10 suited to me here. He's always gonna bet, right? It was actually funny because if he bet small here, I was intending to jam on him, right? And so with the same idea, because that if he, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Yeah.
But I will say,
if
Paolo is supposed to be betting a lot of hands here on this river and he checks to me, that probably implies that his river range is actually quite showdown heavy. And so that's what I was thinking about. I was just like, why did he not bet this river, right? So like if he's not betting this river, that probably implies to me that he doesn't know that actually he should be going for thin value with a bunch of those hands, which means that I should be checking back more.
Right.
So, obviously looking at his exact hand, I actually don't mind checking back because I don't think he was going to fold this hand. And we
probably would have side called, just put it.
Yeah, and we looked at this in a solver, and jacks and queens are step calls on the river, right? So with the cards face up, I played it well. With the cards, like if I did not know anything here, yeah, who knows, right? So
look at this frame. The pot pushed to Paolo.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's what happens when they have queens.
You save some money though by not betting the river.
Yeah. So this is just a rare spot for me because I normally. I just empty the clip a lot, like this about me.
You can see the boys here are doing well though. Alvin and Wolf up 2 and 4K respectively.
Yeah,
not bad.
Holding the north.
See if Ooh, this is a fun hand here. Let's go over this one, Alvin. So, Randy limps for 50. Seinfeld makes it 225 from the small blind, and the action's on me in the +1. I decided to call here. So I don't really know how to defend this call, but
I think calling's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
You could 3-bet this obviously, but I like calling here mostly because we want to play a pot with Randy as well, right? Mm-hmm. So we just want to, this is a hand that plays very multi-way, so we want to see multi-way flop.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just trying to get in there with a suited connected. See what happens. And surprisingly though, Randy goes for the limp. Does he limp call or limp fold? No, yeah, he limp folds. He grabs some chips to try to raise, and then look what he does here. Yeah, spicy.
The trap. Seinfeld has that grin on his face.
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. We flop a pair.
Ace Jack 9 gonna be way better for Seinfeld, obviously.
Yeah.
I should have more 9s, right?
Yeah.
Sort of.
No, he will have all of his pocket 9s here.
Okay.
Right, so yeah, no. This is a really crushing board for Seinfeld, and generally should size up when he does bet here.
Seinfeld bets 350, so he kind of does size up. It's like around 60, 55%.
Yeah. He can play actually a bunch of sizings here. I think down betting here with his entire range is fine. He could overbet this flop and really call you out for not having aces, jacks, and 9s, which I think is also pretty reasonable.
I decided to float him and call with my bottom pair.
Yep.
Maybe if I had a 9, it's probably going to be great.
Yep.
8 would be good.
Yep, very reasonable. The heart is not fantastic. If we do barrel, probably going to want to barrel off and barrel large. But generally, when you have a hand like third pair, and it's wide versus wide, you have a lot of showdown value here. So I would really like to see you show down this particular hand. If you had a pair that's worse, so like you have a 3x here, right? Somehow, I would begin to pile.
Okay.
So
I decided to just play some poker. Sometimes you don't have the best hand, or you don't think you have the best hand. I put him on some sort of ace, like an ace, queen, king, 10, something like exactly what he has. And I thought if I bet small here, it'd be pretty scary. I mean, he's obviously going to call here with an ace, but then I would pile river and try to get him to fold, just outplay him.
Sure.
3 hearts right there. I could definitely have flushes in my range. He could too, but if he doesn't raise, but if he doesn't like do anything weird, then I think I could just pile river and maybe get him to fold like a hand like ace 10.
I will say, very good players here will just check call 7-6 suited, just to make sure that when you pile on them, they can call you, right? So, I do know that Zach is a professional player. I don't know any other reads beyond that.
River comes to 10 of diamonds, so no more hearts, which I think is decent for me because he's gonna have a lot of those really strong ace of. Well, he's gonna have the king and the queen
with the king of hearts, sure.
Yeah, stuff like that. King queen gets there, but he checks over to me for a second time now, and there's 2,200 in the middle. I don't really feel like giving up.
Yeah. So I think what's kind of important here is that when the board comes out this. I guess we can call heavy, right? Like all the draws, all the gut shots came in. We don't want to pick a sizing that lets our opponent off the hook when they have like ace king or ace queen, right? Because like if you bet like half pot here, sometimes they just side-call you, especially when they have the heart, right? So like in this spot, I much prefer jam as our only bluff size. Because like if I have a straight with the king of hearts or if I have a flush here, I'm just going all in. Right, so if I want to be balanced, if I'm balancing that part of my range, then I would go all in here. I will say, however, again, when the board comes super coordinated, a lot of my bluffs are also going to have coordination with the board, right? So like, when I'm running bluffs here, my hand usually has red cards in it. Do you know what I mean? I want to have black cards when the board has 2 hearts and 2 diamonds to give my opponent the maximum ability to call fold with like hearts or diamonds. Right, so when the actual diamond comes on the river, or so the heart comes on the turn, I want to have high hearts myself when I'm running those big bluffs, right? So, so this hand, I think, again, too strong to turn into a bluff in the first place, right? We just really want to just check the turn and try to hit a 9 or an 8 or just show down. And also, I think that you don't give yourself the opportunity to bluff raise river, right? So, villain bets flop, you call, turn goes check. If he value bets the river, this is a pretty good indication that he's not super nutted because he didn't bet the turn. Right. He bet a polarized sizing on the flop and then just suddenly checks the turn. Right. He probably is not going to be so heart centric here that after a turn goes check, and if he bets like something reasonable on the river, we can jam on him. Right. So again, not a move that has like been cemented into your playbook, but once you add that into your playbook, you become so much harder to play against. But it's also scary. It's very scary.
Yeah.
So
interesting. Okay, I bet 1,400 into 2,200. So exactly like 2/3, and he doesn't look too happy about it and thinks for a while.
Spot, but I think 2 pair in the spot.
Put him in a spot. If he did have an ace king, ace queen type of hand, I think I would have gotten a fold if he's thinking about it this long with 2 pair.
Who knows? I mean, he has the ace of hearts. Like, I think he takes a while to just make. He's just making sure that that it's a good call, but I don't think he's ever actually thinking about folding here. He also has the 10 of hearts as backup, so yeah, you just always have to just call here. But yeah, if you want him to get off this hand, you need to jam.
He's like, how do you have that? Okay, take my $5,000. This hand is fun. I pick up pocket aces, and obviously I'm going to start with the raise to 150.
Okay, so
I actually don't call 150. I raise it up to 150, and we get a. What happened here? Oh yeah, so I raise it to 150. BDD puts in the call for 150, and Alvin wakes up with the beautiful 7-8 of hearts and makes it 725.
So you should not be squeezing suited connectors in this formation very often, right? Like just as a note, this is a 10% hand for me to randomize here, and the way I randomize is often by suits and with if my card is on the left or the right, and I look down and my hand was the suits and mixing that I normally will 3-bet with. So, I kind of go for it here. Obviously, my timing is really, really horrible. And what's even worse is that I thought Randy had like 4 or 5K behind here, and so he just min 4 bets. To
he doesn't have 1,400. He has like 1,100. So yeah.
Yeah. Randy had just paid out a nit bonus.
That's why the graphics are wrong.
So the graphics are going to be wrong because they don't.
So if he goes all in for like 1100, action's back over to me, and I think this is kind of like that Andrew Nemi spot with the 6 bets. It's just like anything I do here is going to look so strong. So obviously re-raising would be the more standard play, but
so I don't think re-raising is that necessary, because after you call, and conceptually I'm always going to call, right? Then the pot is going to be like 3,400, and you only have like 4.1 behind.
It's like, just a little over to the pot.
So because the stack to spot ratio is so small, you're guaranteed to be able to get all the money in. There's no real reason to chase me out. Now, if you had like ace queen here, I think ace queen and some of those hands like that to rip and then make sure that you deny equity from me is important.
I'm just looking at everything. I'm like, holy crap, how did I find myself in such a great situation? I'm grabbing chips. Alvin's like, oh gosh, what did I do here?
I know. I was really hoping that Wolf was just going to fold and then I could play heads up with Randy.
Normally I probably would, seeing a 3-bet and then a jam.
Yeah, so I'm just like, it's
how much?
It's 300 to call into like 3,400 or something like that. So obviously I'm going to call. And my hand is like the single best hand to try to crack aces with.
Pop comes king 8-5. Alvin makes a pair. I have a pair. It's way better.
Dry side pot. No reason to try to deny equity here. Okay. So, okay, let's talk about this. I have 17% equity in this pot. So when Wolfgang checks, he's handing me $600.
Do you want me to pull it out and give it to you now?
So let's just right. So let's just be like super clear here. Like, I mean, obviously he does trap me for like a little bit of money here, but it's just very difficult for me to go broke unless I have 5/8 kings, just some kind of like really, really strong hand. Because when Wolf calls that 4-bet cold as the original raiser, I mean, I put him on aces, kings, queens, ace, king. Like I put him on just like super nasty hands, and so. Yeah, I just think that you should always just put in a very, very small bet to try to get a little bit of value / deny, right? Because like, again, if you give off a gut shot here, you're giving me $450, right? So like thinking about like what my percentage actual value is here, and then trying to deny that is really important, right? Also because it's actually not worth $600, it's worth more. Right, because if I hit my 8 here, you lose four grand.
Yeah, if I'm trying to think about what my thought process was, you can correct it. Sure. It was, I didn't see you do anything really out of line up until this point. So when I raise and then you 3-bet me out of the blinds, I'm not really putting you on 7-8. I'm putting you on like decent hands. Sure. Maybe revolving around the king, maybe some queens, jacks, 10, stuff like that. So I thought checking here might get me more money in the long run, but against your exact hand, obviously.
But like, if you think I have like hands that have kings in it, then why do you not bet?
I don't know, I figured you'd do the betting, but
why would you want me to do the betting? You're basically like, if I have like king queen here again, you're just letting me just free roll.
Yeah.
Right. So I would just bet here, and again, because the stack to pot ratio is so small, a lot of the times when you bet, my only option is just jam. Right. So.
Flop goes check, check. Turn comes the 4 of clubs, and Alvin does something that pretty much screams, I am a professional.
I'm actually really, really happy about this play. So dry side pot, no real reason for me to like bluff here. And so the most important thing that I want to do is block just so I can see the 5th card, right? So I bet 1/15 of the pot, and I get Wolfgang to just call.
Yeah, that's not.
Which is again like, okay, so one, if I miss, no money goes in. Okay, like I know Wolfgang just has like a really, really strong hand here, and so this is just really targeting, like in my opinion, Wolfgang's like kind of like trappier side. Is that I just I think that I am often going to be able to just like see a free card here, right?
Yeah, I need to raise it.
Yeah, you definitely have to raise, and just not
immediately after the hand. I'm like, what did I do?
Yeah. So again, Wolfgang is just giving me like $1,000 here in exchange for this 300, right? So I'm paying $300 to buy $1,000 in equity. So
wow.
Yeah, when you put it like that, you're just like, oh no, I'm getting wrecked. Because again, like, I mean, like, can you get away if the river's a 6 and I jam on you? Like, like it's like for one SPR, like it's really gross. And obviously, I'm just checking and snap folding.
He checks. I bet a chunky amount here. I think it was like 1,500 or something.
That's not chunky enough. You should bet large. I mean, so there's like some busted draws here or something. I mean, I don't know what you possibly can have here. But I would just like. I put in a ton of money.
Yeah, I bet 1.8K, and I win.
Yeah, it's also annoying because if you folded, then I would have won the pot. I would have won the pot against Randy. So
yeah, you would have with your 8s, huh?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So that hand was both a success and a disaster for both of us. that's all we can say.
I like my call pre-flop, gotta bet the flop, and then just try to get more money in. Yeah.
Damn, Wolfgang getting them Alvin bucks. Those hard-earned Alvin bucks. I would say there's like under 5 players in Dallas who have won a 1K pot off me so far. So, yeah, good job.
I'm on the Mount Rushmore of Alvin bucks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, BDD raises under the gun with pocket 8s. Randy and Carlos both put in the call with amazing hands. And I look down at the jiggities here, under the gun, and I decide to make it $400.
Okay, so the minimum we want to make it is 425 or 450.
Okay.
So we're in the ballpark. It's fine. I also will say, facing the under the gun here, Jacks is just a call. I think that way too many players are just like overplaying in this spot.
But do we want to bring in Randy, obviously, and Carlos, who are both gonna call? I mean, by just calling, then we're gonna go 4 ways instead of heads up.
Yeah, I mean, so like the goal is to make the most money, not win the most pots, right? And so like, I mean, really what is happening is like, if BDD ever 4-bets you, I mean, you're gonna just have to, right? You're just gonna be in kind of a horrible spot. Yeah, so I just think that, yeah, like 10s, Jacks. I mean, 10s is 100% a call. And also, like heads up, 10s is just a call here. Heads up, Jacks is just a call. And we know that when we squeeze, we need to be tighter than when we're heads up, right? So like, yeah, so Jacks is just a call here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of live players just overplay Jacks against under the gun. Even Queens is just a flat against versus under the gun, especially 9-handed.
Yeah.
I mean, 6-handed Queens is sometimes a flat under the gun. You need to show up with strong hands.
Wide off to the set, but
Well, I make it 400. Only BDD puts in the call. We're going heads up, out of position to the flop, which comes ace 7-3.
Okay. So generally against the under the gun player, when it comes ace low low, we want to be playing a polarized strategy. So Jacks is probably going to be a check, right? This is not a spot where I think range betting is really good on ace low low. Villain's going to just be very ace heavy. Right. Also, when you like range bet here, he's gonna have like Jacks, 10s. You know, if you just bet like 1/3 with your entire range, he just has too many hands that continues from under the gun. So I like the check.
I check. He snap checks back. Makes
Bang!
sense. He said it.
a set on the turn.
Bingo bongo.
I'm hoping he got sneaky with an ace here. So 955 in the middle. Obviously, I'm betting. Do you like 750 here?
I mean, so let's actually think about like what hands he has here and what we're trying to target. Unlikely he's got kings. Right? Unlikely he's got ace-king, given the pre-flop action, and given the flop action, somewhat less likely that he has ace-king, which actually should be a 100% call in his shoes. He should never 4-bet ace-king in this spot. And then he can have ace-queen and then some of the sneakier checks, right? But then he's got like queens here some percentage of the time. And then the other hands we're trying to target are like 10s, which I don't even know how much value we're gonna get from 10s when the jack comes. So really here now, the only hands we should be aiming for are like ace 5 suited plus, right? So when he checks back here, he's mostly declaring, I have bluff catchers. When your opponent says, I have bluff catchers, what do you think is the max pain size against him?
Small.
When he has bluff catchers and you have the nuts, you want to go small?
No.
Yeah. When your opponent says, I have a medium hand and you have the nuts, don't go for the milk. Go for the fat.
Well, I went larger than small. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when your opponent says I have bluff catchers, you want him to be forced to hero you, right? You want to make his life difficult, not your life easy. So I want to go. Sometimes I want to go like 1,000 here. Like I don't mind just like starting large. I want to just be able to set up the pot size so all the money goes in.
That was the goal. That's what I decided to do. I don't go 1,000, but I went, I think it was 750.
Okay, yeah, you got a chunky size. I really like this.
Watch how fast he calls me with a pretty sus hand.
Woo! That is a huge call out for you. I mean, okay. I think this is just. Obviously, I think this is kind of spewy because, when you're under the gun and you squeeze, like, what hands? Like, I can't even think of that many bluffs that you have that he's like even thrilled to face. And now, the pot, it's like 1.5 behind. Okay.
Yeah.
Can anyone tell me what Wolfgang's huge mistake was to there? If you're just at home and you're just casually watching, did you notice that Wolfgang made a huge mistake? Right? And I pointed this out to Wolf as well. You have a huge timing tell here, right? Like, you bet 3/4 on the turn, snap jam river.
Hoping that Miranda's Dallas made his flush.
Yeah, what did I wait? Like 10 seconds, 15 seconds?
Yeah. And so we noticed earlier when you were going for bluffs and you had like a 9x hand, you like kind of tanked because you were thinking about like, what combos, blah, 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 do I turn into? What can I try to get him off his hand here? But when you have the nuts, you're just like, oh, right? So I think that there's kind of a discrepancy in your timing. I think that's something that, we were talking about this, whatever hand I had quads, and Brass Monkey was like running a big bluff on me. And then on the turn when he bets into me, like I stopped and I thought to myself, what are the things that I would think about if I did not have quads? Right? Like if I have like jacks here, what do I think about? And like, do I think about folding, blah, blah, blah. And so I stopped in the moment and said, okay, if I have jacks, what do? I don't have jacks, I have quads, right? I know I'm just calling his ass. Right. But what that does is creates that simulation in my face and in my like posture that I'm like, maybe villain is able to run this kind of like crazy bluff on me on the river, right? So as long as they have it in their mind, he's kind of unsure, that probably it makes it a little bit clearer. So if you take like a minute and a half here and jam, then I think it actually looks more bluffy in some spots because people are like, what is he thinking about? We'll see if that matters. Also, a major difference that Wolfgang has implemented in his game recently is putting on the douche glasses.
Probably the first and last time I'll do that. But
oh god. You also leaned into that persona. You're like, I'm gonna be that guy today.
Yeah, I wore the chain too.
Oh my god, and the bulls. Yeah, you got all of the sports betting d-bag like accessories going on.
Yeah, but you can see here, he starts like looking at me, like look at this. And I'm not giving anything away. I'm doing the Tom Dwan, looking at one card in the middle, trying not to move. I can't even see out of my peripheral.
You have your hand over your left neck. Good, good. I like this.
Protecting the...
not only are you protecting your carotid artery, but you're also slightly hunching forward, which actually makes your baggy shirt reveal less about your breathing. So you're doing actually like all these like very, very subtle things to protect information here. Who knows if he can recognize this, but I do like that you do the Dwan and turn into a statue.
Dude goes in full, I don't know what to do mode. He ends up taking off his hat. He scratches his head a little bit.
Oh, I thought you were gonna play this video and let us just watch him suffer.
I can't go for 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes, no commentary of just pure hero call suffering.
Yeah, but he does make the hero call. I turn it over.
Brian was not thrilled about this. Wolfgang flosses on him.
Okay, this next one here, we have pocket jacks, and I raise it up to 225. And Sturdy is in the +1 position, and he is going to click it back over to me, I believe. Yeah, he makes it 750.
Jacks is going to be a mix here. Sturdy's been a very active player, so I mostly prefer a 4-bet here and to like 2 grand, right, to start setting up the stack sizes. Generally, when you're out of position, you want to be making it like 3x or a little bit more here. We just call. Calling's pretty standard here. But what's important is, when you flat these like medium overpairs, when you get good boards, a lot of money's gonna have to go in.
9-8 deuce should be a pretty good board for pocket jacks.
Yep. Also, generally a good board for your range because you're gonna have a lot of, 9-8, jack 10, 9s, 8s, Sturdy's not gonna have all of those. Although again, Sturdy has a lot of, a variety of hands in his 3-betting range, so.
It does go check on the flop, so the 7 of hearts comes out on the turn.
Yeah, so this is so advantageous for you, particularly for the out of position defender. 3 in a row, low boards are just like absolutely super smashing for you. And so definitely want to see a small bet with range. I think that's going to be good here. So like 500-ish with 100% of your hands. So as long as you do this with ace 5, do this with a 7, just king queen. Just close your eyes and just bet like a quarter and a third here. And that's going to be really, really difficult for villain's entire range to continue against because what does he do with ace king? What does he do with ace queen? Like queen jack of hearts. Queen jack of hearts obviously is going to continue a raise.
I make it 575.
Yeah,
so very small.
Absolutely beautiful sizing. It's the sizing that is going to put your opponent most into the blender with his like medium strength hands like that. And Sturdy has one of those hands that you're kind of like targeting with this sizing, right? And so I think we can appeal here. Right? Let's see.
Yeah, he called me with the 1K chip there.
Okay, so when Sturdy calls you, what hands are we going to be putting him on and what hands should, so on the river we have to think about, do we want to try to induce or do we want to go for value? Right? So what are the factors that make us want to go for value? Well, he checked back the flop and we have no overpair, right? So just generally, money goes in. But also, I would say, the more we block villain's potential draws, the more it forces our opponent to have some kind of like medium strength made hand. And so in this spot, we block basically every draw under the sun when we have like the Jack of Hearts here. And so I think that this hand is too strong and too blocker oriented to go for a trap on the river. I'd always just go for another value bet. I'd also go for like a dirty thin value bet. So like if like the river came a 5 here, I'd probably still bet jacks because like just calling out my villain for not having a 6. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely now that we have top, best 2 pair here. I like a larger sizing, right? Something again that really puts our opponent into like a weird spot when he has an 8, a 9. I don't know if Sturdy has too many 8s or 9s here.
Well, it looks like I owe you another taco because I missed a value bet.
2 tacos.
I think I was trying to get him to bet, like with a hand like Ace Queen, I guess, and just try to bluff me off like a 1 pair type of hand, but he didn't go for it.
Yeah,
I would have looked like a hero. He bets, I would have snapped him, but yeah.
Yeah, but
instead
again,
I missed value.
Yeah, but again, I think Ace Queen just has too much showdown value. He just because if he's calling on the turn, his argument is I have the best hand here, I can just show down.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you're not going to actually get a bluff from him. So I think that when you hold jacks here, you just have to bet yourself. So yeah, just paying attention to your blockers is going to be really important in this kind of spot.
All right, this next hand with Randy is kind of interesting. He raises up to $75. Seinfeld gets active and V-pips and makes it $225. Obviously going to, well, I don't say obviously, but I think I like a 4-bet. What do you think?
Oh yeah, Ace King 4-bet incoming.
Yeah.
Again, question of sizing here. When we're in position for 100 blinds, we can make this a little bit more than 2x, so we can go like 500 here. When we're a little bit deeper, probably want to aim closer to like 6 or 7, something like that.
875.
Okay, a little bit on the large size, right? Again, makes your opponent's life too easy with their medium parts of their hand, right? So when they have like Jack 10 suited, they can probably just like snap fold against you.
Yeah.
We want those hands to like have heartbreak, right? So like I think an example is when Paolo 3-bet me, I had King Queen suited, right? Like I had to call there, even though it kind of is not like the best spot.
Interesting, Randy doesn't just rip it for 2.4K, but he calls, he sees a pretty great flop for him. He's free rolling me here at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we have a stack spot ratio to 1, so the standard play should just, you can just like rip it here, or you can check call. Like either one is fine, depending on exactly what your opponent's going to do.
So it says that I checked, and I did. But what actually happened was Randy bet out a turn. He just ripped it all in. So I obviously I checked.
Yeah, start checking to him. Sure.
Now the real decision is, do I call it off here?
Okay, so what is the when he bets like less than the pot? Right? Like when the money goes in, we only need to have 33% equity against this range. So if he has like, pocket 9s or like pocket jacks even, right? Like we have at least 25% against him, right? If he ever has any worse hand, that now tilts it way in our favor that we're going to have on average more than 33% here. So you just have to snap call. And as also a general rule, when you are calling off with Ace King, you want your ace, the suits of your hand, to be the ones that look like the board the least, to give your opponent the maximum chance that he's jamming some kind of draw on you. So for example, when the board has a heart and a club, we want to have spades and diamonds, right? So having the ace of hearts is not like absolutely fantastic. Having the ace of clubs is the worst one, but I probably have to call up all of these hands regardless because of the stack to pot ratio.
Cool. After a little bit of thinking, I decided to put in the call, and turns clean. 5K pot, and he wins.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh well, but happy I made that call on the flop. I was thinking about maybe folding, but no. Putting in the call, good decision there.
Yeah. And obviously we'd see that even that he's free rolling you still have 40% equity in the hand. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
We're still up, 6.64K, not bad. Okay, we open up 10-9 of spades in this hand to 150, pretty standard so far. And we are going to get action from Seinfeld with my favorite hand. He puts in the call, and Brass Monkey and Carlos both call as well, holding each other's outs.
And hands.
It is.
Outs and hands. Okay, let's
see the net game is on. We haven't really talked about that in this video, but basically if I lose it, I owe everyone $50. Not the biggest deal, but yeah, you can see that's why some people are calling here with like really terrible hands, like 8-4 diamonds.
Okay, just checks around. When you have a hand that really has low interactivity with the board, I don't mind checking here.
We have more interactivity here with the 6 of spades, and Seinfeld leads out for, I believe, a few hundred.
Okay, so one, Seinfeld should have a lot of checks in his range. And so this is something we were talking about here. If he has, pocket sixes, a queen, a jack, there's just so many hands that should check here, mostly because, you should have a mixed betting and checking range so that, sometimes you have bluffs on the flop and sometimes you just check like a hand like pocket eights. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can have pocket nines here, you can have like jacks, you can have like a bad queen. And so when he leads here, I don't think that your range is constructed in a way that this punishes you. And also when he bets like this small into the field, I'm just going to raise this guy because, just put him into a spot.
Okay. Yeah, I actually just called, so I think that's definitely a mistake. You need to be raising. And you can see his exact hand probably doesn't stand to raise. He may get a little sticky, but he doesn't have the nip button, so he probably just gives it up. I don't know. I just call. We don't see a great river card here. And he checks it over to me pretty fast. Yeah,
so super important here that we just 100% bluff, right? Especially when we're multi-way. There's absolutely no reason for him to ever give up with a queen, so I think the likelihood that he just has the under pair is just really high.
A lot for me to learn here. I check behind with 10 high.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound great coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, I would generally say after the turn goes check, check, there's or after early streets go check, check, if it checks to me on the river, there's absolutely no way I'm not bluffing.
Right.
Right, so as a general rule, right, if any street goes check, check, you gotta be right. Like the ranges are just too uncapped.
Yeah.
So
would have won that hand. Not the biggest hand, but still a grand. Could have came my way if I fire a bet there. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it like that.
Yeah. And so just like cleaning up, like not running a bluff in one spot or bluffing in an extra spot. You know what I mean? That would have been like a $4,000 swing already, right? Yeah. It's like really crazy how just like playing like really, really accurately really adds up super quickly.
Right, this next hand is interesting. Sturdy raises under the gun to $100, so pretty strong under the gun range, and he gets 2 calls over to me. King, queen of diamonds.
Strong hand, definitely gonna be
strong hand.
Definitely gonna be squeezing this. Yeah.
Yep, 525 is what I chose. Did a little 5x there.
Okay, yeah, looks again to be in the ballpark, right?
If Sturdy comes back in for another raise, it depends on his sizing, right?
So if he goes anything more than a small click. Right, like if he goes, 1,500, it's pretty gross. You can probably start thinking about a fold. If he makes it like 1,100, 1,200, probably always have to call. Again, you have the strongest suited hand here, so generally your very strong suited hands are going to call. I mean, like king queen here is not fantastic.
1,200 over my 525 raise, so it's only another like 675 for me to call.
Yeah, also with the dead money already in the middle, it's pretty reasonable but not thrilling, right?
Yeah, I don't look thrilled, but
I also would say that Sturdy's definitely overplaying jacks here. Jacks is 100% call here. Queens is 100% call, right? If Queens 4 bets and just puts it in here, it's just crushed by aces and kings.
I decided to call. I'm going to see a flop here with a suited king queen. We see a diamond, which is great, but it's the other 2 cards are not forward deuce.
Yeah.
And I obviously start with a check.
Yeah, I think Sturdy can bet anywhere between like 500 and 1,400. I think all of them, but any bet sizing between that is going to be reasonable depending on his exact strategy.
You can see Alvin looks thrilled by this hand.
Yeah.
He bets and I snap fold. How big did he bet there? He bet 2.6K. Yeah, he just ripped it.
Yeah, so big boy bet.
Yeah. End up losing 1,200 on that hand. Probably could save another 600 pre, but whatever.
I mean, I think the problem was also when he rips it there, you just like snap him with queens because that's like the most likely hand that you're gonna call him with. I mean, you have tens there sometimes, and I don't know if you even make that call.
Right. And this last hand that we're gonna go over is actually a pretty good learning thing. It seems initially when he said just fold, I'm like, what? But now it makes a lot more sense. Carlos makes it 175 right out of the gate.
Yeah, so
there's no straddle on. It's 5, 10, 25.
Yeah. So the one thing I will say is that over the course of this, we've seen Carlos go for some like large sizes under the gun. We've seen him some limps. And so generally when I see any opponent is kind of taking 2 different sizings or actions with different parts of their range, I try to begin to infer what is going on here. I would say that when I am playing 6-max online, if one of my opponents 4x's it from under the gun, I just snap fold ace queen, right? So here when villains snap like 7x's here, ace queen is going to be a fold from all positions. And I know that like hurts, but it's good.
Yeah. You can see me, I'm like, what the heck, 175? Like.
And so like when you go, what the heck, you should just fold.
Next time I will. I decided to call, and that brought in like the entire table here. Which, yeah.
Table. If you have a suited hand, you call, but offsuit, obviously, have to fold.
We see a board of ace 7-5. The graphics are wrong. It's ace 7-5. So obviously I am in a heap of trouble here, and Randy, don't tell Randy that. He's looking at the graphics, not the actual board. He decides to bet out here with nothing.
Yeah, ace 7-5, and Randy leads with king queen because he is a boss and does not care. Oh God.
Carlos now raises it up, so this should have been another signal.
So, what I will say is that I really don't like this raise, mostly because I don't think that you should be getting too much action from worse. Like, obviously, Randy's just going to fold here. And the times that Randy doesn't fold, you're crushed. He's, like, got 7s, 5s, or, like, he's, like, 2-pair plus, essentially. Also, because of the action, I don't think that Carlos actually has the equity advantage here, because, like, when everyone else calls, they're much more likely to have, you know, interactivity with this board with 7s, 5s, you know, 2-pair, 6-8, stuff like that, right? So I think putting it in, like, when you raise here, you're inviting to get re-raised on, and it's just, like, really, really horrible from that spot. And generally, as a rule, if you reopen the betting and then really hate your life after the money goes in, you should not have raised in the first place.
Yeah, and the problem here for me is if I'm calling 175 with ace queen and then I hit an ace, it just feels like wrong to fold again, but it's just compounding on the mistakes. If I fold pre, I save that 175, I save the 625 here, but that's not to be, I put in the call.
And again, when we try to hand read, like, he 7x'd pre-flopped and then raised when then the out of position guy led into the field. What hands could you possibly be beating here, right? Like,
yeah. Sturdy comes in with a gutter, and he now picks up a flush draw.
I will also say that after you raise here, Sturdy is now the scariest player because he actually should have the most made hands. I, as a general rule of thumb, put in no more money no matter what the action is here.
And I think I kind of realized that here. I obviously checked it over to Sturdy. I kind of just want to get to a showdown here and hopefully beat a hand like ace-jack or ace-10.
Yeah,
but,
I agree with this.
Yeah, so I check, and Sturdy checks behind. Interesting that Sturdy, I mean, does he just want to see all of his outs and not get check raise? He has a ton of outs. He has clubs and the straight draw. So.
Yeah. So yeah, he maybe probably just thinks that after you call, you have to have a made hand when he has that hand.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So.
And the river comes a deuce of hearts. Carlos now bets out. I mean, there's 2,700 in there. I think he makes it 900, so it goes like a third.
Okay. So I will say that we've seen Carlos block bet this sizing a couple times with single or 1-pair hands. Also, when we read deeply into villain's hands, he can't have 6-4 and he can't have a 4 here, right? Sturdy can have those hands, which is a little bit scary because he is behind you. You know what I mean? But I also will say, if it goes raise on the flop, you call, he calls, how many bluffs or worse hands can Carlos have here? 0.
Yeah.
Absolute 0. So... yeah, I think it's just.
I call, he wins, but everything compounded from the pre-flop.
Yeah.
In the future, Carlos, I'm not calling you when you make it 8x pre-flop.
Yeah. I will say, however, it's literally a fold on every street. So, but you know, you learn, and I think that you will have this hand in mind next time you get into these multi-way spots, right? You don't want to play big pots multi-way. Which is why Ace Queen is really bad, because when you play multi-way pots with them, you're just like, no, I'm never gonna put it in. So. Yeah, good job. Okay, so aside from the nit payouts and like our side bets, both of us made out a buy-in. So
yeah, not too bad. A lot of things to learn from. I'm playing higher stakes, so every decision is very important.
That's really important.
Like not bluffing with 9-10 of spades, it cost me $1,000. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I gotta pay attention to these things, and I got a lot of notes that I can't show you guys here that I took from talking with Alvin. So. More better play to come in the future. Thanks, Alvin.
Yeah, of course, man.